Alright, so in this video I want to introduce the Camaro project to you, and I want to give you an overview of that car and kind of show you, what the foundation is or the platform is that I'm starting with. And I want to give you a little bit of history that I've had of the car, that I've had with the car, and I also want to tell you some of the history of the previous owner as far back as we know. Alright, so as the Jeep project was winding down, I kind of sat there and asked myself, what's next? And I kind of made a decision to buy a junkyard 350 roller block motor and build the motor and then figure out what I wanted to put it in. And I found a motor, I bought it, had it shipped here, really fair price for that. And I'll show you guys that old motor here in just a minute. But I was going to spend the summertime. I still got work to do on the Jeep. I still got some tweaking to do, some leaks to chase down and fix in the differentials and things like that. But in between that, I was going to rebuild this motor and kind of had an idea in my head of making it a 383 stroker. And then once the motor was done, then I was going to look for a vehicle to put it in. I never set out to look for a 78 Camaro. I set out looking at Gen 1 Camaros and Chevelles and stumbled upon this one on eBay as I was looking. And I never thought I would find anything that quick that I liked. And there's just something about it. So there's something that kind of drew me to it, something that kind of kept me coming back to look at it. I contacted the owner. His name's Jay. I hope you're watching, buddy. And just via text, asked some questions about the car. He sent me some additional pictures. And it just looked really, really clean, really nice looking car. And just real sexy kind of curves on the front of this car. I really like the body style of this, especially the 78s to 81. Gen 2 Camaros. So kept coming back to the car. Honestly made a couple of lowball offers, and Jay was pretty set on his price, so I ended up pulling the trigger. This car came from California, so I bought it sight unseen, and I had to have it shipped here, which was an experience all in itself. So the shipping process was pretty interesting. You really go through a car broker if you've never done this before, and then they basically put what you have and where it's located out to several different car haulers. And because this car didn't run, it ran, according to Jay, it always started up every time he cranked it. But now that he sold it, and not his fault, he went out and bought a new battery for it. He really tried to get it running, but it just wasn't running. So a non-running car has a slight additional charge for that because they have to winch it up and winch it down. And it took about a week for someone to pick up this car. And they went and picked it up, and then they had to drive from California all the way to just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And that took about a week, 6-7 days around that time frame. So the car hauler, he was real good about texting back and forth, and he said he's going to be in Atlanta. This was on a Saturday at around 3 or 4 p.m. So I called Matt, my buddy Matt, over actually to kind of help us push it into the driveway once he got it unloaded. And this guy didn't end up showing up till about 1 in the morning. So check out some of this footage of when I first got the car, and I'm sure, there's my Neighbor of the Year award again for probably pissing off my neighbors for having a full-size 18-wheeler car hauler unloading a car at like 1 in the morning. So check out some of this footage from that. All right, so I've actually had this car for a couple of months, and one of the first priorities that I had was to try to get the car running. And it didn't have a clear fuel filter, so I wasn't sure fuel was getting up to the carburetor, so I put in a clear fuel filter and absolutely nothing. So that then led me to the fuel pump, and I had to replace the fuel pump, and I already started to learn about this car. Not like the Jeep where you can get to everything and you can get under the Jeep without even lifting it. This thing is very tight quarters. It's very hard to work on. So to get the fuel pump off, I had to take the alternator off, and the AC compressor off. Got to the fuel pump, put that on, and the car fired right up. So I got some footage of that. Let's check that out real quick. All right, so I just replaced the fuel pump. Just turned it on. I got the battery charged and got volts. Some of my gauges are working, it looks like. Let's see if this thing will start. So I was pretty happy to get the car running, as you could tell in that little clip right there, and pretty excited, and got it started, backed it out of the driveway, and I really wish I would have filmed this because I took off down the street and just smoke just went everywhere. And of course my buddy across the street was yelling, Joe Dirt, you know, like Joe Dirt's here in his Camaro. So after a while that smoke went away. It still smokes a little bit because I think the valve seals are probably leaking a little bit of oil. But that's okay because the motor that's in there is not going to be the motor that's going to be in there for long, at least I hope. All right, so that's enough of me talking. Let's go check this thing out. All right, so there she is. This is a 1978 Camaro. This is an LT. It's not a Z28. As far as I can tell, a California car from for its whole life. It's even got a catalytic converter in the exhaust, so I think it's pretty original exhaust. I know there's been a muffler added to it because it sounds pretty good, but let's check it out in a little bit more detail. Sun's kind of glaring there, but real clean body lines. The car looks really, really good. It's got some issues, but we'll get to those. All right, so here's the front end of the car, and everything looks pretty good here. And I know there's quite a glare from the sun. This lower grille is missing, and this grille doesn't seem to fit right. There shouldn't be a gap like that there, so I got to fix that. But other than that, looks really nice. All right, let me show you this hood. Trying not to get the glare of the sun in there, but the hood is again not a Z28 car. I don't think I mentioned that yet, but this is not a Z28 car, but it does have a hood scoop that was put on aftermarket by the previous owner. So the hood's in good condition. Let's check out what's under the hood. All right, so here's the motor, and this is the factory motor, and I can tell it's the factory motor because it's got that corporate blue valve covers on it. No way to know the exact mileage of the motor, but it runs pretty good and it sounds pretty good. I've done a couple things since I got the car to address some immediate issues. Number one, I replaced the positive battery cable there, and I need to replace the negative battery cable because I'm getting some intermittent starting when I go to start it. And I did replace the starter, and I would love to show that to you, but it's buried under there. Now, one of the other things that didn't work at all was the steering. So you could steer it, but it was very, very difficult to steer, and obviously something not right. So you can see in there, PSC gearbox. I put a new rag joint in there, and then also a new power steering pump right there. So that definitely took care of the steering issues, and the thing steers like a dream now. So this motor is, again, factory motor. It's the LM 350, and I think LM stands for lame because it only puts out 175 horsepower from the factory. So that's part of the reason why I want to change it out. Plus, it's just pretty tired, 42 years old, you know. So all the body lines are pretty straight on this thing. There's really no dents. There's some dirt and grease here from where I was underneath it changing out the starter. But overall, it looks really nice. The glass is in good shape. It's got tinted glass, and there's absolutely, like I said, absolutely no rust at all on the car. So pretty clean, pretty straight. And the paint is in pretty good shape too. This side is the same. No dings, no dents, pretty clean body lines. and just a real nice, overall real nice looking car. All right, so one of the areas that I've got to address is this flaking paint on this aluminum, and aluminum's pretty hard to paint. It usually doesn't stick, kind of like this one's not sticking, and all of the window and door trim is that way, so that's something that definitely has to be addressed. So the other thing that has to be addressed is these wheels and tires. So these are you know, old school Krager rims, spray painted black, and Jay told me these were never designed to be the final wheels and tires on this car, but while they're holding air, these tires have seen their better days. Got quite a few splits, quite a few cracks, and every once in a while I've got to put air in this rear tire, the right rear, and then of course the front passenger tire as well. I got to put a little bit of air in there every once in a while to keep them up. So these wheels and tires need to be replaced, and I'll be working on that probably first thing. All right, let's look at the trunk. So I cleaned this trunk out, but let me try to get out of the way. But in the usual places where there's rust in these old Camaros, this one doesn't have any, nor does it have any signs of being repaired. The trunk is really clean. Pretty happy with the trunk. I plan on cleaning this up and painting it, probably with just some Pour 15 or something like that. And you can see the trunk latch is white, as was the original color of the car. And obviously I don't think this spoiler was factory. I think this was an aftermarket add-on, but I think it looks good. All right, inside the car, and sorry about the birds, but every time I'm out here filming, doing something, they always chirp like that. So the doors open and shut really good. Really no issues at all with the door hinges that I can tell. The molding, I don't know if that's new. Obviously need to do a little work on it, but molding's there. All right, so the interior is actually in pretty good shape. These are not factory seats, they're aftermarket seats, but I gotta be honest with you, I really like them. They're really comfortable. It's got an aftermarket console in it, and it's got a B&M shifter. TH350 automatic transmission. Aftermarket Grant steering wheel. The dash is real clean. Most of the gauges work. The gas gauge works, the speedometer works, the tach works, the water temp works. I think the only one that doesn't, and the volts work, I think the only one that doesn't is the clock. All right, so it's a factory AC car, but the AC is not working. I don't think I have any kind of climate control at all. The wiper switch is kind of stuck up under there. I believe that I'm not exactly sure where that mounts. It's kind of hard when, you know, I didn't take this thing apart, so I'm kind of learning. No stereo, and got some wires hanging down. Not really sure what those go to, and I just haven't addressed that yet. I've been working on mechanical stuff, but there's some vents, and again, dash is in pretty good shape. Front windshield, real nice. So you gotta love Jay, the guy I bought this car from, because he left me notes, and wait till you see all the parts he gave me, but he left me notes saying basically don't roll the passenger side door down because it's missing this roller, and I haven't done much with this yet, Jay, but I will get into it eventually. Now, as far as the headliner goes, Jay had a headliner up here. It wasn't sitting up against the roof, so I just took it out for now because I was hitting my head on it, but the roof looks real good. I just got to get a headliner or use his and put it in. So the back seat, these actually look like factory seats. The back deck has been redecked, and the seats in the back look really good. There's the red seat belts. Yeah, overall in pretty good shape on the interior. So one thing I noticed, and it might just be me, but I think that the rear leaf springs are pretty shot. To me, the car should be sitting up a little bit higher in the back to give it that factory rake, where it's a little bit higher in the back and a little bit short, a little bit lower in the front. And I think those springs are just shot, so that's something I've got to address as well. All right, I know you saw this thing run in the beginning part of the video, but let's see if she'll fire up. Almost. I got a little smoke going. Always smokes when I first start her up, but it goes away. So you can see a little bit of smoke there. I just started it up, and it's got a pretty nice rumble to it. Sounds pretty good. Thing's probably got a Flowmaster muffler on there. Like I said, still has a catalytic converter on there from being a California car. But overall, runs pretty good. All right, so remember how I said Jay included a bunch of extra parts with this thing? Well, this is a table full of parts that he included. Every single one of them is labeled. Some of them are wrapped in bubble wrap. Those are the armrests right there. The visors are here. That's the original console. Back in the back is brand new door panels. Never been used. Just a ton of parts. I haven't even really gone through them. The only thing I've really done is just got them out of the trunk of the car and out of the back seat of the car. But there's a bunch of stuff here to go through, and that's going to save me a lot of time and a lot of money for the interior. All right, so here is my late model roller block. This came out of a 2001 2500 Astro van. It's got about 240,000 miles on it, so I'm hoping that the block is still good. Obviously these heads are probably not good, but it does have the Vortec heads, and I got to take this thing, well, I got to strip it down. So I got to completely unbolt pretty much everything that you're looking at, get it down to the bare block, and then take it to the machine shop. So that's also on the project list, and I will probably start on this sooner than later. All right, so that's essentially an overview of the car. My plan with this car, and give me your opinion about this, is so exterior, I don't plan to do too much to it. I'm going to paint all of the window trim, and I got to get new wheels and tires, and I want to do something with that front grille. Other than that, I'm not doing anything to the exterior of the car. I think it looks great, and I'm satisfied with it. The paint is in pretty good shape. I can tell it's been garage kept for 10 years because Jay gave me the receipt where he painted this thing, and he painted it probably right after he got it, a little bit after he got it. And I think the paint's in great shape. The hood scoop, not crazy about it, but it's permanently mounted, bolted through the hood, so it's going to stay as well. So as far as a project plan, the exterior I think will be pretty simple, with probably the biggest expense there being the the new wheels and tires. So as far as the interior goes, and I think the interior looks pretty good, at least it's a good foundation. The seats are in good shape, and I think I have most of the parts to put the interior back together. I got the door skins, the armrests, the sun visors. Really, I gotta deal with the headliner. So if I'm not going to use the headliner that Jay had in there, I'm going to have to probably buy one and put that in. So some wiring issues in the dash, wires hanging down, doesn't seem to really be affecting anything. But I'm not going to do like a complete rewire like I did with my Jeep. That was a real pain, and I just don't want to get that deep. I don't want to go into like a complete restoration with this car to that depth. So I'll troubleshoot the wiring issues, probably get a new wiper switch because that one's not working well. And that's pretty much it for the interior. I don't plan to do a lot there. I plan to use all the parts that Jay gave me to put that thing back together and get it looking a little bit better than it does now, kind of stripped down. So the mechanical side of things is really where I'm going to be spending my time, and I can already tell you it's such a difference having to crawl under that car versus the Jeep. But to me, the mechanics of this car is really what's been not neglected, but just not updated and repaired as it's been needed. And like I said, Jay parked this thing in his garage for 10 years and didn't drive it, and was working on the interior and gathering parts. So I'm obviously not faulting or blaming anybody. It's just a 42-year-old car, and it's not had a lot done to it. So the mechanical upgrades I plan to do are to replace the rear springs, the rear shocks. It's already got, Jay did have this done. He did a new rear sway bar, possibly look at changing the gears to maybe some 410s. And that's about it in the back of the car. Well, one more thing is the gas tank in the back. With that clear fuel filter on there, you can see it sucking up some rust and stuff like that. So I'm sure that that gas tank is the original gas tank, and it's probably had it and needs to be replaced. So moving from kind of the back of the car towards the front, new universal joints in the drive shaft. I'll inspect the drive shaft, make sure it's good, maybe clean it up, paint it. And then obviously the motor and transmission are going to be pulled out. It's a 350 motor in there, so I'm not doing any kind of conversion like I did with my Jeep. I'm not going to change the transmission. It's as I said before, a TH350. But I'm going to pull all that out. I'm going to keep the transmission, rebuild that. I already have a buyer lined up for the original motor, and I'm going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to put that motor that I build, made it up to the 350, and put it all back in and put it all back together. So depending on the level of build that I do with the motor, if I keep it a 350 and just put some better heads on there and a roller cam, or if I go the 383 stroker route, I'm not quite sure about that. There is a pretty steep price difference between a built 350 and a 383 stroke. So I plan to do most of this work myself. The only thing that I can see that I will farm out is probably the rebuilding of the TH350, and obviously the machine work that's going to need to be done to the motor. So my Jeep has given me some confidence that, hey, we can pull a motor out. Matt is going to help me with when I need help with that, and then possibly reassemble I'm going to tear down the motor in the basement myself. Obviously, that's just unbolting pretty much everything from that motor. Take it to the machine shop, have it machined, and then try to reassemble it myself. Now, my buddy Matt's done this many times. I've never done this, so this will be kind of new territory for me, and hopefully I can continue to learn about this stuff, because it's pretty cool and it's a lot of fun. So the only other thing that I'm thinking about is a new AC system, and I really don't, like, my Jeep doesn't have air conditioning, so I didn't have to deal with any of that, but the car with so I'm just outside of Atlanta, and these summers here are hot and the winters are cold, so no climate control is not good. So I've been looking into the aftermarket AC systems they sell, specifically from Vintage Air. Those things have quite a steep price tag, and they are a pain to install from what I've seen. So I'm still kind of kicking that around, but the time to address that is when obviously when the motor and the transmission is out of the vehicle, and it gives you a lot more room in there. And while the motor and transmission are out of the vehicle, I'm going to redo the front end. I've already done the steering gearbox, power steering pump, but I'm going to do all the ball joints and all of the tie rod ends and all that, and make sure all that stuff is tight. I may replace the coil springs and the shocks. I'm not sure. So that's all on the project plan, and coming up in the near future. All right, so that's quite a project list and quite a project plan. I spent probably just over 3 years working on my Jeep, and I don't think that this Camaro is going to take near as long as that. I'm thinking maybe a year to a year and a half to get it built the way I want to build it. So it's going to be quite a journey, and I hope you stick around to be a part of it. All right, so stay tuned to the channel for more cool videos to come, and if you like this video, if you like the content of the channel, hit that subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching.